and a lot of downloads, a lot of epiphanies, and a lot of questions asked. I did an Instagram this morning. It's only because I didn't look decent, you know. I didn't quite look decent enough for YouTube from a social responsibility point of view. And I was going to do, I did listen to a few updates relating to this. And I did have a few revelations to do with some of these themes that are playing out. I'm currently doing the astrology for the templates for the next 6 months. Crazy. Anywho, so I have got a lot of downloads and I've looked at the transits and seen how it's going, and I'm puffed out because I've walked up the stairs. Definitely from a collective level with Uranus and Taurus making it square. So I named the video, I was going to say, may the squares be with you. Because squares are difficult in astrology, and this is the second square we're having in 2021. The first occurred in February on the 17th. And we currently at that time had Mercury retrograde in Aquarius. We currently have Mercury retrograde in Gemini. Hi, beautiful. So somebody also mentioned that the Schumann resonance had spiked, and I kind of felt it was going to, because Uranus and Taurus were squaring. Yeah, I'm puffed out because I ran up the stairs. You know, and I keep going live while I'm walking up the stairs, and I've got a pen in my hand. Back to the good old nursing days. So collective energy. The one thing is, when the Schumann resonance spikes, it's our consciousness, it's our vibration at a collective level. And because Venus is in the house of Cancer, you want to stay home. You might want to eat, you might want to nurture, and Jupiter in Pisces is our health and the way we deal with our psychology. It's the 12th house collectively. And yes, individually, we all have it in a different house, but at a collective level, we're the collective consciousness. So the collective consciousness at the moment will have yin to the yang, and that's with everyone, okay? So 1 minute you may be feeling that everything makes perfect sense, and you are releasing and going with the flow and hearing your higher calling and doing what you feel you need to do, with the understanding that things can change. Definitely squares can create their creative tension, their frustration. We're not where we want to be. And there needs to be a perfect balance. And when we had Mercury retrograde in Aquarius, it gave the Saturn themes. And currently Saturn, the older energy in astrology, which is the responsible version of yourself, being that it's in the house of Aquarius, is to do with the group energies in your life. You know, how you work with your work colleagues, what's happening at a global level, how we deal with our social circles and friendships with our hopes, dreams and aspirations. And being retrograde, when it was first in its retrograde, we got things to do with what the burdens were. And some of it is the way of being. Some of it can be a 3D circumstance. So there's 50-50 on the cusp there. Because we have had the eclipses back to back, and they were in the house of Sagittarius and Gemini, we are transforming from the first instance, hey? So the first instance was May when they shifted, and that's when we had a lot of transformations collectively. We had war wounds relating to culture, religion, values. Gemini's about talking, learning, understanding, you know, airing our dirty laundry and getting it out. And so to a degree, we can be very rigid when we have that conditioning. It's like, no, I'm holding on to this because this is what's a sure deal. So a lot of the coaching sessions I've had with the clientele, we have had a lot of lineage come up, and it really has been coming up through the eclipses, through the moon's transiting in Cancer. Pluto currently is retrograde in Capricorn, and it's all, it's really going back to the 80s. You know, Pluto has quite a big transit. It's ending in 2023, where it's shifting. So some of these themes we're holding on to in their conditioning. They're very much, this is the way it's done since the dawn of time. And especially when we have been raised a certain way, it's something that we know. It doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It's just, it's like an old habits die hard. And some of those things, they're necessary. Some of those things we need to take with us. Other things, it feels they don't resonate and they won't work. Now, Uranus is a place of liberation. It's like the shake-up. It's like, yeah, come on, get out of that old mindset. You know, it can be not everything's money. And yes, we do need money to eat, but there's other ways as well. but it's values. Our values are changing. But sometimes connected to our group, a circumstance. And again, each placement will be very unique in the way it plays out. And I know with the astrologists that I've listened to with the aspects, it can play out quite physically or very psychologically. So it depends on how it is playing out. Uranus and Taurus can be very sudden. And it may be the direct actions you're taking to shift things around. And again, because we've got Mercury retrograde, it's making that a little bit tough. So there'll be crosswires. Some of you from a business perspective, it might be quite slow right now and you're thinking, God, I can't see the hay for the clouds. It is a good time to put resumes out if you were to apply for jobs, and that's due to the fact things move faster. Definitely a great time to sell. And from a perspective of fixing everything, void moons are better to complete things. So I wouldn't say start anything new during a void moon. And definitely, you know, in Wiccan energy, if that's something you practice, the subject come up the other day with an individual. You know, I wouldn't suggest it during an eclipse because the portal's too open. You're better to keep everything extremely neutral, to wash poor Incy out, so to speak, so you can usher in that new vibration. I'm going to quickly look at the chart for each zodiac sign. I'm just going to have a quick chat to you guys about it. I definitely feel that at the moment, a lot of you could be psychologically purging some things. And for each of you, that can be massive downloads, it can be innovation. It may also be from a psychological point of view, you're having breakthroughs, and some of you might be a little bit stuck. Now, Venus in Cancer and Jupiter in Pisces in retrograde can be on the unhealthy octane, indulgence in eating, hermit mode, victim consciousness coming up, maybe feeling like you need to nurture yourself. And I'm going to look at the astrology because I did notice this morning some very interesting aspects occurring at the Squr. So we will have a look at that. But Chiron is making some great aspects and some difficult aspects, and that's the Squr. Let's have a look. Okay, so Mars at the moment is in the house of Leo, which is heart chakra. So from an open-hearted space, it's a little bit like Venus, but it's also your energy, your thrive, your Leo, okay? Your lioness, your goddess, your king. It's you stepping into your power. And yes, you can start getting a little bit more energetic. And at the moment, you probably find it won't happen right away. So yes, we've just moved out of Mars in Cancer. It's moved into the house of Leo, but because Mercury's retrograde in Gemini, your brain just won't stop. It's not the Virgo energy. It is, but it's on overload. So it's like, oh, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. And it's coming at you where it's almost like you feel you need to go to the optometrist and maybe get some glasses because you can't concentrate. And it's like a super hard drive computer getting massive downloads. And you're going, whoa, how do I culminate that and bring it in and just slow it down? Try and avoid caffeine, which, you know, I have a bad habit of that. It doesn't really work with me. But I know usually from an energy point of view when enough is enough. So you're a hard drive and it's a burnout mode. Uranus and Taurus is your nervous system. Then we've got Mercury retrograde. It doesn't slow down. It speeds up. So it helps purge the ego. It helps to become more practical. But because we've got Venus in Cancer, you know, Cancer's very intuitive. It's very nurturing. It's very co-creative. But being that it's Venus, what we're going to like is being home. And it may be due to the other aspects in astrology of uncertainty. We also might be decorating our home, cleaning our home, eating. Not wanting to be around family members. We love people, but also it can be, you know, purgatory of, you know, if we lost someone, how that felt, and, you know, having heart-centered energy. But it can bring up a little bit of codependency, only if there's wounds that are being activated due to Aries and Chiron. Now, We have Aries and Chiron, the wounded healer, squaring Venus and Cancer. That's not fun, okay? So the movies that are coming out, and I always notice this both astrologically and through genres in society. You will look at the music that's being released and it will, spiritually link into the vibration of the collective consciousness. You can look at movies, which is creative license, and it's, intuition and download. It's very psychic in nature because it's emotive. You're tuning into it, you're writing, you're bringing it into fruition, and it's coming at a point. So with the movies that have been coming through, they have been to do with orphans. They have been to do with, people coming from really hard places, which is collective consciousness. It's very much in the nodes of Sagittarius being the South Node, the North Node being Gemini, having to look at different cultures from their perspectives of what they've lived and hearing their story. And through those circumstances, initially in the beginning stage, it would have been like, even something as subtle as hearing this term, which you may have had a feeling and a vibration to do with it previously, and now hearing it may be different. As we move forward, our perspective is always shifting. When we hold on, and I'm going to say it in a minute, when we hold on, it means logically in our mind, what we feel right now can be like an ingrown. We're used to the feeling, so we'd rather hold on to that of what we know than experience that of what we don't. So it can be the term white privileged, okay? And we can claim that in any society experience, because whatever we have technically is a privilege. What we do with it from there on, and some of these things, they can be horrible things. It's really like, I'm having such a bad life, and then we look and we've got a roof over our head, we've got food, and we've got opportunities, and some of us in different countries maybe don't have running water. So it's not really down to a colour. It's down to an experience, and the glass half full, the glass half empty. So I used an analogy for my daughter this morning and towards a friend, and it's the food chain. And it's not to do with this, it's to do with something else. And it's the notion of the triangle. And usually in a triangle, we have at the top of the triangle the foods you should eat less. I love the way my face is moving at the moment. I like to use analogies. It's all my dad's fault, I tell you. He used to speak to me in code, and I'll be like, get to the bloody point, all right? Yep, I got it from my father. Okay, so the triangle. In the triangle in the food pyramid, usually it's the salts and the fats up here we don't eat so much. In some diets, based on your biology, you'd need it. In this analogy, it's the polar opposite. These are the foundations, and they're the direct experiences we've had. And you've got to think of maybe 3. Or a direct situation you're having right now, and it's horrible. Struggling. Now, I asked my daughter, I said, write 3 things, just an example. And she's in the car and I'm driving her to school. Get a piece of paper, draw the triangle. Right. Write down 3 words. She'd probably kill me. I wonder if I should explain what was in it. Anyway, and I didn't need to know what it was about. It was for her visual point. And I said, write one of the most extreme circumstances. It could be a word to describe it. It could be a vibration you once felt, but it's one of the yucky ones, way back when. And she wrote, and this was fear-based frequency. It was something to do with success, something to do with paraphernalia, and something else. And that was her viewpoint. And it was an experience she had viewed. And she was like, what? Okay. So she wrote the words down. We'll put little X's there. All right. Whatever you want to put in there. And I can give you some examples in a minute. So she wrote them down here. And I went, well, you were supposed to do them down here. So that's what happened. And when you're a child, the ego forms a protective mechanism to go, ouch, that hurt. And we build coatings on it. It's like a cycle, right? It's like, oh, the stove was hot. Okay, I'm putting a Band-Aid over it. Yeah, that didn't quite work. Going to do it again. And before you know it, you've built up all these protective mechanisms in your own hair. So this little beacon goes off every time something pokes it. And you've built up all these techniques of avoidance to protect you. It's your intuition. It's like, ouch, that hurt. So in a healthier format, it's happened now. It's too bloody late. Now what we're learning through collective consciousness and Jupiter and Pisces, which this is our test run right now, because 2022, good old Jupiter's going to be in the house of Pisces, and I'm not looking forward to it collectively. I'll have a lot of bookings, I tell you, because it's psychology. And if we haven't done our shadow work, you're going to get the yin to the yang. So learning how to do your shadow work is key. Eating healthy, and I'll give you some tips moving forward. So when that's happened, whatever that dynamic is, it can be a person betraying you. It could be abandonment, whatever it is. We then draw a mark across. And now it looks like a cup, right? A triangle cup, upside down ice cream, whatever you want to call it. So in the higher perspective, this is your higher consciousness. This is the pinnacle of where you wish to reach in ascension each time. Now, those of you who have been on the ascension path, if you want to target, it's shadow work. It's transformative. It feels gross. You see the number synchronicities. I'm doing those videos shortly, and it's like, congratulations. Welcome to your awakening and commiserations. Anywho, so in this, it's happened. It's messy. You've got two things you can do. And there's many ways we can deal with this. One is you can use the wound as motivation. Or you can use it to create victim consciousness. Now this here is Chiron. It's the bottom of the barrel, and it's really horrible. It feels yucky. You're reliving that memory. It's a prison. You're a rat in a cage. And sometimes we can get mad that a perpetrator or a memory of that happened. So when we say forgiveness is the key or closure is the key, we don't quite know how to do that, because psychologically we feel the ego has protected these built-up mechanisms. Don't touch me, won't touch the stove, never going to cook again. Heck, I burnt. Right. That's what your head's telling you. That's what the vibration, the intuition, the emotion is bringing out of you when it's re-triggered. Same thing. Gets triggered, we go back to that. Right, no. When you're making peace with it, you're like, you know what, it was hell. I will acknowledge what it was. I will look at it in so many ways, it's not funny, that I feel I want a lobotomy. And then I need to climb out of this barrel. But I'm not leaving this barrel without taking something good with me. Now, it can do two things. It can ascend you and motivate you to the top, or it can recreate something like that, which is a vicious cycle, and it's not fun. Desensitizing the wound takes practice, and you're not moving away from it, which is avoidance. You are addressing it. And there's two ways you can do it. Number one is, if it's an environmental situation and you can't directly change the environment, and you can't, it's not necessarily you could change, and it's not necessarily they would change. It's about learning to accept. And somebody said this to me years ago, and I was like, I'm not going to accept that. That is just horrible. And I was like, yeah, no, that wasn't really what he was meaning. Acceptance is view it and acknowledge it. It's like, I'm looking at the clock, and I've got 99 problems, and this thing here, it's like, this has not budged. It's not budged. It's not changed. It's got worse. And I'm like, no, we don't have a problem. No, it's great. It's great. It's great. Accepting is, you gave it a time frame. You looked at it. You lived it. You experienced it. You came to it from different ways, and it still hadn't changed. Acceptance is, okay, I've done all I physically can. I accept you for you, and I accept me for me, of my ability, or, and find forgiveness to yourself. I've done the best I can. Right now, that's where you're at. That's where it is at, and have acceptance. Now, you then don't, and I wouldn't say don't bother. You won't deal with that because you have reached your personal closure that it isn't a you issue, because you've tried different ways and you step back from the fire and allow it to resolve itself. And, you know, that's very loosely spoken because it depends on the connotation or the connection to the situation. But there will always reach that threshold. So yes, it can be environmental. It's like, you know, it could be a whole dynamic. It's repeating, you're trying, people aren't working with you. It could be a toxic work environment. You can't change the people, they work there. The hours may be the issue. It's not matching with you. You know, you're trying to leave, you're trying to go home, but hey, you know, you've got to pick your kid up from daycare. One analogy, but they keep letting you down and you have to do overtime and the kid's sitting in the, you get my gist? That's not a workable situation. You know what your needs are. They're not addressing your needs. They don't want to budge due to their schedule or circumstances. You need to accept it and then do something about it, which would be, you know, start looking for another job, look outside the box, get another person to come in as backup, and it's problem solving. But if it's not workable, you need to move it, especially if it's affecting you physically, in your safety, your health, and your well-being. So with this, the notion is, if it's an old wound and somebody says a word and it activates it, by facing it and directly dealing with it differently each time, the wound is being deactivated and it's quietened. So when you have the trigger, each time you're peeling a piece of the onion away and you're not allowing it to define you anymore because you have your thing in control. It happened. So you get the trigger, it comes into the wound and you're like, it happened. Thanks, Houston. Thanks for reminding me for the 50th time, 1,000,000th time. And you take a breath. That is not that time. We are in another moment. Thank you for reminding me. I will deal with this circumstance differently and I will not allow my wound to control my current position. Breathing in, blowing out. Once you can do that, you're turning hell into alchemy. You are using a wound now in a different sense. Somebody may feel, I'll give you an example. Everyone leaves me because I'm not pretty enough. Just an example, all right? And I gave these examples to my daughter this morning. I've been through a lot of vibrations in my life, I tell you. So it might have been a wound I formed through a relationship, believing that the only reason somebody wanted me was for money. It might have been because of my beauty, because of lack of beauty, whatever it be. Now, a stubborn person like YILDIZ, I got this habit of turning my mess into blessings, okay? So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to prove you wrong. And it's always to self. It's not to another person. Initially use that as your motivation, especially if someone's really peeved you off. You can't do that. I get angry off self-loathing, self-pity, fall into it, pity party, right? Go into the pity party. And some of these things are really horrible things. So I'm not making it small. So go down into the wound, sit in it for a bit. Then turn it to your advantage. I'm going to turn my experience into liquid gold. So I would use it instead of saying, the glass is half full, that's the way it's always going to be. All I will ever have, it's self-fulfilling prophecies. You're doing it to yourself. It's victim consciousness, folks. This is always going to happen to me. Every person that's with me is going to cheat on me. It's about me. It's not about you. It is about you if there's other things going on, but we're not getting into that right now. They're stories we're telling ourselves because what we're trying to do is understand why it happened so we can go into that onion peel again, the wound, to create band-aids to have that never happen again. And the only way you can ever control that is by the way you relate to a situation. Nothing's permanent. Nothing. And you wouldn't want life to be permanently the same. It would be like eating hay. If you really step back from the fire and the wound, you'd go, maybe I get tired of my house. Maybe I don't want my house to be blue all my life. Maybe I want it green and purple and pink. Maybe I like Buddha behind me today. Maybe I want Buddha next to me tomorrow. Don't know. Flexibility. Uranus and Taurus. Change. Can we flow with the change? So you could turn this wound into liquid gold. And I remember there was one point in my life I was like, you know, telling myself self-fulfilling prophecies. How do I get my twins' attention? I told them I used them for this. It was motivation. See that song, Motivation? I used to listen to that and pound that pavement. I was like, I'll be showing you. And it was for me. Psychologically, we can think in the initial stage, it's for them. Use that. That's okay. When you're dirty, you make it happen. So when you're doing that, you're alchemizing, you're moving a wound, you're addressing it, which means nobody can affect that again because you've already challenged that belief. And then you can have some really funky crap happen, and you could realize it's a fallacy, but inside of you challenge the emotion. You've walked into the fire of the circumstance instead of running for the hills. Because if you run from the hills, people, places, and things are going to be bringing it. And it's disabling your energy of your potentiality of ascension. You know, limitless means every human being on the planet's going to have all this cess down here. We've got Aries and Chiron. It's squaring currently Venus in Cancer, inner child wounds. If you can deal with it and face your shadow, you will never have anything in your life that will make you, we can have things to make us afraid, but because you challenged it, you'll know that you have the tools in the bag to be able to go, crap happens every day. I'm going to give that a go. I'm going to get something out of this, but not be too rigid in the tunnel vision of that's all there is, because things can be so much better. I gave one analogy that it was like an ingrown toenail. And in your perspective, you're saying, I know what this is, but what happens if they accidentally amputate my toe? This is a joke, okay? Mercury retrograde, don't want to be getting anyone upset. Anything's possible. Have no control over that. I have control of the intention of how I turn up and how I deliver it, but not how you're going to receive it. That's a you thing. So with that toenail, when you're thinking, you're telling yourself all these things, oh my gosh, you know, especially if you're scared and you don't like needles or anything like that, you're like, I don't want to go, you know. So you could keep that there and it could get worse and fester and get infected. Or you could go, let's just move into it, get this bloody shot on the road. And after, the relief is you're like, why didn't I get that done 2 months ago? I did actually have that happen. Doctor said it was the worst he'd ever seen. I'm stubborn, I'm stupid, I do things the long way, but I do learn my lesson. Yeah, I do. Any questions? So we have, okay, at the moment, the node is sextiling Chiron, which means you're going to have a lot of revelations about your wounds. You're going to be able to handle them. But the hard part is going to be that your emotions are going to be in your face. You're going to want to go into hermit mode. It may be difficult to be around people for them to help you because they may have emotions coming up. From a social responsibility point of view, our wounds and our fear to do with the future, and Venus's health as well. So, you know, Venus in the House of Cancer is our families, concern for our families and our well-being and wounds, and, you know, it's the vibration, but it's also vitality. You know, there's difficulty at the moment due to what's happening in the collective. And so collective consciousness is raising the vibration, the Schumann resonance, and we're looking at those polarities. We also have Saturn in Aquarius and retrograde, sextiling Chiron and Aries. So as I mentioned back in February when we had the first square, what those themes were are coming back up again. So we're looking at those and we're revisiting them. You know, can we in our wisdom be responsible within groups? That can be at work, with your children, with your elder relatives, with your responsibilities. And collectively, no one's going to agree at the moment. Well, some people may, but do you know what I mean? It's preparing you for where we're moving. And 2021 is tough. Like I said on Instagram, you're going to feel like you got that wheelbarrow and you're pushing it up the hill. But what you're going to find is you are getting traction and movement. And definitely, I would say within a week, it's going to be moving very quick. At the moment, you're upgrading, getting grounded, Mercury's retrograde. Mercury brings the information to you fast, but it's like you're a circus clown juggling and you're like, heck, what do I do with that? Allow it to come. We just had the eclipse in Gemini. Once it moves direct, the other planets that are retrograde, the benefit is you will get a lot done in a short time, and it's about 3 to 5 months that they're retrograde, but it will be more impactful in that time. So you'll have a 5-month window. Okay? You'll have a 5-month window. You will have to put your back into it. You will have another square in December, but it will be your opportunity to shift life about, to look at your creative projects by having the full moon in Capricorn, which is the shadow sign. In Capricorn zodiac, when we had Capricorn Cancer axis, is the 7th house, which is currently at the moment in the house of Venus. So it is similar to the 9s that we had previously. We're revisiting that. But we learnt from that so we can move forward. So when it comes to what happened, 2 years ago to where we are now, we're looking at that and we're going, okay, what did we learn? How have things changed? How did social distancing and all of that affect us? What are we doing to move forward? And the one download I had, hi Dale, is that collectively what we need to understand, especially because, I do look at the astrology moving forward, it's a bit like getting that summer body back. And unconsciously, the good old wound, this is going to be like this forever. In the meantime, the fashion at the moment is sports bottoms and fluffy teddy bear tops. It's practical. Venus and Cancer, it's comfort, it's emotion. Maybe it's a big t-shirt. But astrologically, North Node in Taurus next year, beauty, health, agriculture, money. North Node. You are creating the foundation, so don't sabotage yourself. Move into the ascension path of social responsibility to not tell yourself these self-fulfilling prophecies or you're going to miss the bus. It's hard work. It's insane how many videos I have to do. I know what to do. I just have 2 hands. And Mercury retrograde is making my head bloody busy. So I've got notepads and I'm writing things down and I'm like, yep, go back to that page. Your business element of things, if we're just looking at business right now, the tones of what's coming through, use media, use the technology to understand what to do next. How do I create a website? Google it. Go on YouTube. It's upskilling courses all year. That's what we're doing. North Node Gemini. Find a way. Think, talk, move. Blog. Gossip, which is not the type of gossip I'm talking about. It's word gets round. Oh, Lord. Is it my daughter? No, it's not. It's my partner. I'll have to call it back. So it's, looking at your business. Number one, if you feel you're getting no traction, all the retrogrades always do help you look at quality systems. It can be looking at your bank account details, maybe reducing your debt. Some of you maybe have had moves of houses, transformations in relationships. Look at the foundation now. Wounds, when they first happen, it's a bit of a bugger. Because it's like, it's okay, I'll just sweep my crap under the carpet. I've got to survive. Yeah, we do, but we also need to think about where we're walking. Let's pause for a minute, take a breath. When there's no turning back, there's only going forward. And what do we do when we go forward? We sometimes have to leave trash, excess baggage. No time for that. No pity party. We need to move. There's a time and there's a place for healing and purging. And there's also, through the ascension path, you are learning to desensitize the wound so that if it comes up and you're dealing with a twin, a circumstance, a life experience, you are more whole as a person, that it won't define you. And you may have triggers where you look at other people, but you go, wow, I've actually been where those individuals have been. Yeah, they've got a way to go. And you know it's a process. So you won't lie to yourself and say this is forever. You'll look at it from a logical point of view and go, no, this too is going to transform that person. And everything is divinely guided. It does happen. Keeping your vibration up at the moment, you know, can be a little bit challenging. But I would say from the yellow chakra, from Venus in Cancer, drink some lemon water. Lemon water can help balance it out, but don't go too acidic. Eat food groups to balance your auric field for your nervous system. And heart chakra activation, especially if you have issues with that, get it checked. This can be a time with Mars where, you know, extremities and, you know, heart related. I have seen a few on media at the moment through the transits, both with their and when I've looked at their astrology charts, you know, this is after it's occurred. Some people have actually passed from such, and I'm speaking in code. When you look at their astrology, they had Pluto placements, they had, you know, placements of Leo in their chart, because it is heart chakra. You build a callus around the wound until it eventually, you're peeling the callus away so it doesn't define you. The callus is already there and it's not working. So every time it gets too hard, it presses on the wound and it's like, you know, I've got to get the foot scraper out. I'm going to scrape this off, freeze the frigger, and ditch it. I've got to pull it out from the root. When we had when we had Chiron in Pisces, that was not fun. That was crying on the floor for me. That was for a lot of my group of coaching sessions. A lot of people were doing that. Jupiter's in Pisces. Jupiter's the place of expansion and growth. It blows it up. So if you have a lot, you know, that is swept under the carpet, a lot of shadow work that hasn't been done, it will be a transformative energy for you, but it can feel like hell on earth going through it. So, you know, if there's things that are coming up and they're really difficult while we have Jupiter retrograding in the house of Pisces, have a really good look at that. And, you know, don't be too ashamed to go, you know what, I think I want this sorted. I think I want to go get counseling, therapy, or try healthy, holistic ways to deal with this. But don't be afraid to do the work this year, because it will be in Pisces a lot longer. And what it can bring up, it's 12th house, house of imprisonment, but it can be the house of spirituality. Decoding the ways you have valued things, finding a, you know, a balance, making your dreams come true can be good. But we will, in the collective, have people, maybe we will have a lot more in 2022 where therapy and coaching and counseling will come up. We'll have agriculture larger, beauty, travel, food will be massive, you know, innovation with food. We may have new beauty procedures coming up and new textiles, new trade deals. The South Node will be in Scorpio. I know wounds are healed when I no longer need to tell my story. Even when I don't tell my story, those still come up. Sometimes they're never going to go away. You know, they're there, but it won't define you. It'll be like, I've looked at that so many times and it doesn't, you know, and there's other times when it's come back up and I know I've dealt with it, but again, it can be environmental. So sometimes it may be an acceptance factor that you need to be removed from an environment. It may not be a manageable thing. It could be a very, very toxic thing. And, you know, our ego will make us negotiate it. No, that doesn't seem appropriate. That doesn't seem right. And there's no one shoe fits all. So, I mean, for some, it might be a very abusive family environment that, you know, harm has happened to you and it constantly happens and it feels very toxic and dangerous. And that's something that needs to be addressed. For others of you, it can be financial, you know, from a financial point of view and going, I've addressed it, I'm not scared anymore, but in the meantime, the bills aren't getting paid. Well, hey, you know. So it depends on the context, whatever that wound is. And I've got millions of wounds. We just, as we can view them and deal with them, it's like you start working in harmony with it. You're like, I love you enough, YILDIZ, that, you know, it wasn't good that that happened. You know, it's motivated you in a different way. You've definitely looked at something from a different perspective. That was not a nice experience. But it helps me not want to do that to another person, but also to understand that other person's point of view of maybe why they did that. Not that sometimes we ever know, but again, it can come to many scenario shifts, and that can take hours, so we're not going to get into that. So I'm going to pull 3 cards, but you're going to find it will be for the next week to 2 weeks. Your nervous system can be shocked. You may feel agitated, tense, and afraid. I've still got a few bookings left on the page, so you know, if you need a coaching session and you want me to look at your chart, come through and I can give you a hand, because it will be kicking off. Now, Venus is quincunxing Saturn, so there will be major decisions to be made, and it's pretty crappy that it's happening at the square. You know, we've just moved through the eclipses. We're still in that Mercury retrograde energy, and we have Saturn in retrograde. Quincunxes are left and right. It's like, can you, can't you? Do you want the old? And this could be living with a group and not living with a group, being in a family, not being in a, you know, it's hundreds of things. But it's major, whatever theme is playing out, how you're able to deal with that is the old way working. Some of you, this can be home related, you know, vibrations, family, children. Each of you will be, you know, how it's going to fall in the astrology, depending on that position. Okay, oppositions are difficulties as well, but we do have the sun, which is the way we're showing up. The sun currently is in Gemini at 24 degrees, the critical degree point. So you're going to maybe want to play and you're going to have energy, but again, your mind is running at 100 miles an hour. It's making a quincunx to Pluto, which can be spiritually having to let something go. But how do you do that when you don't know how to deal with the wound? That's why I gave you this analogy. The wound's there. Now, victim, perpetrator, enabling. Biggest goal. You know, I've had a few questions this week. You know, will my business be successful? Am I going to have whatever it is? Are there circumstances right now that can be dealt with in your life that need addressing? By you telling yourself all of this when you know you've got to do X, Y, Z, you know, but you're still down here doing that, it'll be a loud thing happening in your life right now. So whatever it is, you could be telling yourself right now, due to previous experiences and what maybe a group is saying and how they're seeing something, that's the only way. You need to step back from that painting and look at what is the most important right now that needs addressing, of the utmost of importance. Foundation for your home, security, finances, stability, sanity, health. Look at what you think. Separate to the collective. You are a separate energy. You have to live with you for the rest of your life. You're the best investment. You got to put up with yourself. It's crap. I know I'm friends with myself sometimes and I drive myself insane. So make peace with that. Whatever those things are, look at them. Is it fair? Face it and deal with it in a different circumstance. Be gentle and compassionate and understanding to self. And then look at the baby steps you can take to make that shift. If it's jealousy, use the shadow and turn it into alchemy. What they have, I can have. What steps do I need to take to make that happen? Challenge the wound, move above the ego, beyond the ego, but take a step. I watched Anne of Green Gables while I'm watching it. I'm visiting memory lane. So one of it, there's so many metaphors in this. You know, it's really good going back to it, especially when you've done, you know, you've been doing work on yourself, you're understanding codependency, victim consciousness, you know, the terms of perpetrator, enabling, all of that. To hear the story again through different eyes, because we're always changing. You gain a lot of perspective. So Anne Shirley believes she is the ugly duckling, okay? And she believes her friend is the most beautiful person on the planet, if they've attended a party and there's a lot of different folk at this party, and the pretty one who, you know, would rather be intelligent is at the party, and Anne would rather be beautiful than intelligent. They're each wanting something they don't have. And we have to, in this life, experience those things to have the art of appreciation. So in this, at the moment, there's been different downloads I've been having, but it's viewpoints. And as we move away from a circumstance, you can continue to look at that. You know, if Marilla and her brother were not orphaned, they wouldn't have taken an orphan. They then wouldn't have made a difference in other people's lives. Now, we could step back from the painting in this storyline and look at these two elderly siblings that were never able to marry. But through the story, they're admitting they had love all this time. They had love for one another because they shared an experience together. They also had love because they had independence and memories. And they felt what was morally right in that society, and through choices they directly chose to make. That what they were doing to nurse the mother and for her to care for her brother so he could go to school was the correct thing to do. And at that point in her life, that's what was by her book. These are the Saturn energies we're coming up with. They can be moral kind of conundrums. What do I do is, do I do that? You know, theoretically, she never married. Another person would like, no, I can't do that. I want to have my hopes and dreams. I want to have children. I want to get married. I want to do X, Y, and Z. How we deal with it is how we deal with it. We do the best we can. And sometimes it may not be so good. But they admit through the circumstance, they found love through having compassion, love, and understanding to each other, that gave them love because they were the team. And through that, they were able to love Anne Shirley. Unconditional is not what you give me. Unconditional is you know, you can make some pretty stupid decisions over there, but I love you for it because I've been where you've been. Maybe I wouldn't do it as bad as you or as good as you, but, you know, I love you. That's unconditional love. It's not through attachment of, what am I going to get out of it? If there's nothing in it for you, don't do it. But we learn to gain unconditional love through compassion and empathy and experiences. And at the moment, that's a bit challenging. Okay, 3 cards for the next week, and I'll still be live on Friday. But I didn't want to leave you guys without this update. So, you know, I've had one of those days. Balance. The hard aspects at the moment will be Leo. You guys will be copying it. There will be, not really one zodiac sign won't be. As my partner calls me again. Okay, so there's Leo, Taurus, Pisces, Aquarius, Virgos and Scorpios. So you can be having a real hard time. Gemini and Sagittarius. Commiserations. It's going to get better. All right. Okay, so at the moment we're getting at equilibrium. Grounding is key. Looking at the past, take a balanced approach. Love is not always about agreeing for the sake of it. A great relationship is one that both supports and challenges. And that's within ourselves as well. Okay, balance. Yin and yang, masculine, feminine inside of your life. Very Saturn and Venus. Man and woman, yin to the yang, yin to the yang. Balance is not always about agreeing for the sake of it. Eclipse and Gemini. Too many perspectives. Should I do that? Well, they think that this is going to do X, Y, and Z. I'm talking rhetorically here, and you know what I'm talking about. Do we, don't we? Too many perspectives. Mercury retrograde, hopefully information coming. So you can make a decision based on new information, relevant information. Maybe things that you feel you're basing assumptions on opinions over documentation. Who knows? Balance is not balance. Love is not always about agreeing just for the sake of it. You don't have to agree. It's your life. It's your values. A great relationship is one both supports and challenges. A bit like high school with a great debate, really. I love the way the teachers would pick a subject. Yes, blue Mercury. All right, it's going in the past, but there's some things we need to let go of. That may be the need for balance. It may be at the moment, we've got too much on our plate. We don't know what to do. Where we're going, current tense position. Emotions are a natural and necessary part of life, but they can distort your perspective and cloud your vision. Mercury, Leo, third eye, intuition. In order to see things clearly, you must let go of resentment. I just did this as a download. It happened. It was horrible. Perpetrator, victim consciousness. So we can be a rat in a cage and be going on that story. Or we can go, oh my God, I feel like this is a bad merry-go-round and I had a hamburger and I had some, cherry ice cream and I think I'm going to throw up. Okay, you're on have you seen those rides, in the Gravitron? You're in it and it's going around and around. And you're thinking, this burger's bound to come up. It's going to come up. I'm going to purge it. This is where we're at. You can continue that rat race. Fives. It's so many things that change. You don't even know which way to look. 2021 is a 5. Told you. It's the Gravitron after a hamburger and ice cream and a Coca-Cola, and you're going to spit. You've got to get rid of some things so you can live light. We're going to be like Bear Grylls, and we're going to climb that mountain. Shout out, Bear Grylls. Right. Can you feel the ascension? And you go, stop this bloody ride. I'm getting off. I'm moving on up, baby. Okay. Emotions. I'm repeating it. I love Oprah. She used to do this because it reiterates what we're saying. Emotions are a natural and necessary part of life. Yes, they are, sir. But they can also distort perception. With time, if you're doing it correctly and you're not just telling your side of the story in your head, you may gain some clarity. And that's what we're wanting. In order to desensitize the wound, we're trying to make sense of something. And unfortunately, like in the Big Bang, right? Sheldon and Amy talk about this. Sheldon, you have closure issues. And he's like, no, I don't. She gets the dominoes out and he loves playing. I just love Sheldon with his energy. It reminds me of my twin. That's who helps me to be childlike. So, she gets the dominoes out and she stacked them all up. And he's so OCD. He's got it going and he's like, this is it. I've almost reached, because he's aiming for perfectionism because it's something he can control. Maybe because he felt controlled by society's standards. We won't go into psychoanalyzing that. So before he finishes, she flicks it over. He's driven into madness. She's got the Jack in the Box, and he's like, he's getting excited. No, and then she closes it down. She goes, next. And he's having a panic attack because she's challenging his ego and his wound. So the challenge when you are hurt by someone that you can't ask why they did that crap to you. Why did you hurt me? Why did you cheat on me? Why did you lie to me? Why did I feel this was going somewhere? Is you have to reach that closure point on your own, because you're probably going to mess them up if they come back. Because you need to make sense of it. Because why? We go into this band-aid effect of trying to work it out psychologically so it can never happen again. Because we are magic. We are, but not in the way you think. Luciana helped me do all this crap. Could you imagine? I have a very stubborn mind. Bless their possum socks, Jen and Luciana, that had to deal with this strong one. Saturn and Leo, me. Facing that hurts, okay? Because you got to face it, and there will be some space where we had a part in it, which is great because it means we can change it and never repeat that pattern, right? Tick. Yay. Second part is not everything will make sense. You may never know why somebody did something so messed up, but you will also know that your intuition is not the bloody enemy. Your intuition is ding, 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 ding. Something's going on. But do you have power over that? No. They're not your child. You don't need to babysit them. You need a benchmark and self-esteem. That was really messed up. That happened. That's not acceptable. It's acceptable, but maybe I just won't dance anymore. Not with that. I don't want to. I'm going over here. I don't like that. The closer you reach will be trying to come to terms with it. It's like, because you will concoct so many stories in your head. Self-fulfilling prophecies. Were they doing this? Were they doing that? Heck, you can even go down into the dungeon of what position. That's how messed up your mind can get. Don't be doing that to yourself. It's not real. You don't want to know? No. They wouldn't want you to know either. I wouldn't want to know. But you will do such, I'm saying, okay? Do you have a right to ask questions? 100%. But you can't bring it up like the adultery for the rest of that person's life, or you're still down here. And if you've got a child mind or worry, you get me. You know, I don't want to know that. Would have looked ugly. Okay, they're a necessary part. Emotions are a natural and necessary part of life, but they can also distort your perspective. Because you're picturing things in your head that may have not even happened. Why? Because you're moving into the ego to protect yourself so it never happens again. But you're not them. That wasn't your job to babysit. You can't prevent another person from doing such, but you can teach people consequence. And it's like, well, if you do that, that's fine. But I might not be around. I understand if you don't want to be here, but I don't own you. You teach people to appreciate you. And you feel like crap and you might even tell yourself somehow you're a bad boy or girl. You know, we do. Okay. It can also distort your perception and cloud your vision. In order to see things clearly, you must let go of resentment, because when we're in the wound, you can't see the hay for the clouds. So at the moment, if you can't see the hay for the clouds, step back and observe it from a painting. You be going, that was messed up. Okay, then come to it this way. How many fucking situations in this? Okay, why were they doing what they were doing? Were they, you know, if you know a lot about that person, you might look at their family, their lineage, their conditioning, their values. Are they having a challenge to a wound that they just can't address right now? That really isn't about you. It's not personal. Is there circumstances with family? Just step back for a minute. Where we're at, the squares of difficulty with our emotions. Step back. Don't think you know everything right now because it's a bit distorted of Mercury retrograde. We're all up in our heads. Maybe some information or gossip comes to you and you like go into a panic state. Face your shadow. What are we moving into? And I swear we're timeline jumping. I swear we're timeline jumping. Thank you for liking the video. You are trying too hard. This is what we're moving into. Give it time. What did I say? Number 5. Number 5, I'm alive. 2021 is a 5. It won't happen overnight, but the steps you're taking is for the big bang in 2022 with growth. So, healing takes time. You are the best investment in the planet. You have to live with yourself for the rest of your life. And by facing your shadow, you're free and you're having a better personal relationship with self. When you're telling yourself you can't achieve something, does it come down to lineage? Is it something your mother or father said? Is it something you were used to hearing? Or is it based on their perspective of life due to their lineage? Some of our parents had jobs for 80 years, grandparents even. Some of our parents maybe had relationships that lasted the test of time that looked like a bloody romance story. Doesn't mean to say we have to be like everyone. Everything is different. Time. Stop running. You're going to miss some golden opportunities. You are trying too hard. Give it time. I'm going to pull a clarifier. Do we want one more? One more. This is worrying me. It makes sense. Same bloody card came out. Same, a different thing. Same, the same thing. Okay. Two different cards. Time. You are trying too hard. Give it time. Just so you believe me. Only time will tell. Saturn is the lord of time, but with Uranus and Taurus, Mercury retrograde, I'm feeling 2 weeks max. There is something that's been shown and transformed. Butterflies, there is a transformation, but you need to decide in your heart chakra, Mars and Leo, what you want to change, what you need to address, where your heart's at. There's heart chakra activation this month. Mercury's making it worse. Okay, one more check. Any questions? In that very long video, people will think, geez, you should talk too bloody much. I'm going to have a busy week, I'm telling you. You know, you're probably going to find for about 3 to 4 days from the 14th. It's a bit funky, one would say. Concentration, you can have a pretty busy mind on the 17th. The moon is transiting Virgo. Mercury will still be retrograde, but your emotions will be, you know, look after your health, look after your well-being, look after your diet. Eat healthy this month. Eat healthy, be strict with yourself. Nervous system energy with Uranus and Taurus can come down to, you know, effects with nutrition. Eating healthy and looking after your aura, not zooming in on coffee all the time and, you know, protecting your aura. Keep your fluids up. Very crown chakra. But yes, emotions and well-being, important to look after health, especially during Mercury retrograde. When does Venus shift? Let's have a look. Any questions in the house before I love you and leave you? You will be ending a lot of cycles at the moment, and they can come down to, oh, easy the 80s, okay? Because we're going back in time, we're moving forward. It can feel a little bit challenging. Venus won't shift out of Cancer until June the 27th. So I would say you guys could be getting your home sorted. You might be wanting to spend time with people that you can link in that are very close to you and nurturing and loving and very like-minded. You can feel very emotionally connected. It could be very heart-centered as well, passionate and loving. But we need to be around correct people at the moment because our vibes could be a bit funky. I'm glad you chuckled. Okay? You got to laugh at me. I try to use, so like I said, a bit like Anne, you have a gift inside you. It's, you know, whatever method you use. It's, you know, whatever floats your boat. Mine was my analogies. Try to use comedy for therapy. Free of charge. Here at YILDIZ Readings by me. Take care, beautifuls. I will be back on Friday and we'll be doing a twin flame update. I do have easy 10 twins at the moment that have been coaching that have reconciled. They're negotiating. So if you do want to have a booking, there's only small amount of spaces there. If you've hit a roadblock and you've had some challenges at the moment and you want to address them, be it it's connected to your career sector, your astrology or anything else, feel free to book a reading. I love you all, and the Members Hub will have the extensions in there as well. I'm going to do psychic downloads for the beginning of July, and I'm also going to do some more romance reads for this month. So stay tuned, I'll have them to you, and it might even be like the twin flame, earth, air, fire, water. And I'm trying to get the momentum. Once my daughter's on school holidays, I will be cramming videos and getting a lot done while she's away. So I'm juggling during Mercury retrograde, but we do have a lot more creative content coming too. Astrology, psychic attacks, numerology, twin flame path, ascension symptoms. There's millions of videos on their way. Love and light.